Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the soon-to-be-released Jaw of the Dragon. So we've had a couple of days now to appreciate and enjoy Tears of the Kingdom, and although my natural inclination is to talk a little bit about how I think Breath of the Wild is better, there is no denying that Tears of the Kingdom is one of the best games of the year, one of the best games that have come out in the past on the Switch. It's not my favorite or anything, but I am very much enjoying my time with it. It's a very long, lengthy game. There's a reason so many people are enamored with it, right? Clearly, the reception of this game is very, very positive, and that cannot be denied. All right, I would dispute the idea that it's as good as Breath of the Wild, right, or better than Breath of the Wild. But generally speaking, I really, really like the game. However, I can't do that. I can't talk about my real criticism of the game yet because it really needs to be acknowledged that there are a lot of bad actors out there desperately trying to paint a narrative that this game is broken, that it's disappointing, that it's underwhelming, that it's completely terrible, which is not how I feel at all. This is peak pretendo nonsense, right? You have people like David Jack. You have Sean Malmstrom. You have the BitBlock. Guys who have spent the past decade or more hating everything Nintendo does, complaining about them constantly, and then acting surprised when there's pushback to their ridiculous opinions, right? There are people like that. There are people like that right now trying to tell you that Tears of the Kingdom is just not a very good game, which is not true at all. What seems to be happening is a lot of these people, the Sesslers, the David Drafts, the BitBlocks, a lot of them are trying to gaslight you into thinking that they were big fans of older Zelda games, that they were big fans of Breath of the Wild, that they were big fans of the Ocarina of Time era, Wind Waker, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, that they were fans of older games like The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. These guys want to gaslight you into thinking that they're hardcore fans, right? That's what a pretendo is, right? Is that it's a coordinated group effort, among these people to try and convince you that Nintendo has fallen off, that they're not as good as they used to be, that they're not producing anything good or relevant or technically competitive, that PlayStation and PC are doing it better, right? Why are you playing Zelda? You should be playing Days Gone or The Last of Us Part 2 or Gone Home, which is what Sessor loves. You should be playing something for mature gamers. You shouldn't be playing Zelda of all things. You shouldn't be playing a game for little babies. That has been the narrative from the very, very onset, right? Whatever Nintendo does, these guys aren't happy with it. And the thing is, and I think this is the major thing that's changed since the Switch came out, is that these individuals have been doing this so long and have been going so hard at it, against so many different titles, whether it's Mario or Advance Wars or Fire Emblem, and now The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. These guys have been going after every major release, Nintendo release, so much that a lot of their audience, not everyone, but a lot of them, have started picking up on the stereotypes. Maybe they don't use the term pretendo like I do, but it is ridiculous whenever Adam Sessler is mentioned on 4chan or some other forum where people mention his long history of being just a complete anti-Nintendo spurg. There was of course that freak out earlier this year with Baten Kaido's Origins and that review making the rounds on Twitter, that old X-Play review, covering my favorite JRPG ever. I covered that video. There was the infamous Skyward Sword video when it came to the Game Awards in 2011. You have older stuff. I remember one of the very first times I personally observed pretendo behavior was seeing them really go after Star Fox Assault, a game I enjoyed at the time, right? It felt like they were treating this game unfairly, right? And that kind of extended to future releases as well, and it's not getting worse, I would say. Like I said, there's a lot more pushback to this stuff than it used to be, and these people love writing off just being due to blind fanboyism and stuff like that. But that's really not true at all. In reality, it's the pretendos who are out of touch. When I see the BitBlock, someone who I know never actually explored all of the map in Breath of the Wild. I remember him doing a community post a year and a half after Breath of the Wild launched, like to tell us that he had only just now gotten to Death Mountain. Like, am I really going to take someone like that seriously when it comes to like evaluating the performance of Tears of the Kingdom? Like, he tried like claiming the game looked like something that Game Freak would produce, which is in no way true at all. But, you know, Tears of the Kingdom is gorgeous, right? Not that like Scarlet and Violet isn't pretty, but like, you know, it's a different kind of visual style. You know, they're going for completely different vibes. They're not similar at all, is what I'm getting at. You know, it's just they go after so many different franchises, so many different series. They try making up so many different like radical claims, like complaining about like complete nonsense. It's difficult to take it seriously, right? And I really wonder if like this might be the title, the specific release that people point to as an example of just why we as a community cannot trust gaming journalists, right? We cannot trust people to adequately evaluate the newest Zelda game because these guys are like pointing to Tears of the Kingdom and trying to tell you, oh, I preferred the older games. I liked it when Zelda was more linear. When you can easily go back, look at the articles these people uploaded in like 2010, 2011. Like these same people were saying that Skyward Sword should have been made to be more like Skyrim. You know, like that's not something that was obscure. That's not something that like they were shy about. That was something they were very upfront. Like Skyrim is better than Zelda because it's open world. And what happens? You know, within 6 years, Nintendo pumps out Breath of the Wild. You know, an open world game destroys Skyrim, destroys Bethesda. It's done. It's over. Nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to admit that Breath of the Wild is one of the best open world games ever made. Even in 2023, a lot of people don't want to admit it. Even with that game like topping the best of all time charts and, you know, becoming a bestseller and like, you know, getting a highly successful sequel. Like we're still in that phase where there is a certain demographic of people who don't want to admit that game was as good as it was. That other developers in the industry, specifically Take-Two, the developers behind Grand Theft Auto, Bethesda, the creators of Skyrim and Fallout, and, you know, any other open world studio, Ubisoft in particular, like cannot compete with. Like nobody is going to be able to produce a game as good as Breath of the Wild. And we're still in that weird phase where like people are still holding out hope that like, oh man, Metal Gear Solid 5, that's going to stop Zelda. Didn't happen. Witcher 3, that's going to stop Zelda. Didn't happen. Cyberpunk 2077, Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 6. Like it just never stops. It's always some new product, a mature game for mature gamers that is going to destroy Nintendo, right? Capcom, Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh man, we're going to get a new Devil May Cry game. If it's open world, that'll stop Zelda. Oh, we have Monster Hunter World too. Like, again, a lot of these products aren't even confirmed to be coming out yet, right? But you still have this like religious worship of them. You still have this like fanaticism. You have this like desperate clinging to like that 90s 2000s mindset in that like graphics are everything and that Nintendo is like tired and outdated and would soon be absorbed by like a bigger conglomerate, which never happened, by the way. But that is the gaming journalism culture we are a part of. Like that is what we have to deal with on a regular basis. Like people constantly downplaying great Nintendo games because that's part of the agenda. That's part of their mission statement. That's what they want to do, is try and convince you that games like Tears of the Kingdom aren't all that fun, that they aren't compelling, that they have issues, that they like, that there are better games out there, that you shouldn't even bother with Zelda. You shouldn't bother with Nintendo. Like, it is absurd, the level of quality, how much of a gap there is between like a typical games of the year and like Zelda games, right? Because like in between like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, what did we get? Like God of War Ragnarok, crap. Ghost of Tsushima, crap. Red Dead Redemption 2, crap. Sekiro, super crap. Like, what else is there, right? Like now at this point, like you're saying, a lot of these people saying that Armored Core 6 of all things is going to compete with Zelda, like the most niche mech thing imaginable. You know, like maybe it'll do well because of like, you know, From Software, like fanboyism, but I don't know, it's not a Souls game, so I don't think it will. Like, I don't know, we'll have to see, but like I just don't see it. Like I don't see that happening, like even being close. Like the hype cycle is just, nothing is going to be able to compete with Zelda. Right, you know, Elden Ring couldn't stop Breath of the Wild, and it's not going to stop Tears of the Kingdom, right? But like even now, you're having a lot of these people like, you know, going into this, right? You know, you had Arlo like making videos like, oh man, Elden Ring like taught me how outdated and stale Breath of the Wild is. If Tears of the Kingdom is the same, like it can't possibly compete. Like, which of course was like even ridiculous, even when he said that. And now he's had to backtrack now the game is actually out, but it doesn't change the fact that he said it. Like there was no real reason to assume that like Nintendo would drop the ball with Tears of the Kingdom at any point in the development for this title over the past 6 years, right? Yeah, you could complain about like the lack of trailers and the lack of information, but honestly, going into this and like exploring everything the game has to offer, I kind of like that. Like it really feels like, going through this game that you don't actually know all that much about it. And I kind of miss that. It feels almost like it's a game that released in the 2000s, like before the internet became mainstream and before like we knew everything about games before they came out. Like this was, I think, a very good move on Nintendo's part. And I just saw so many people like ragging on the marketing for this game, like ragging on like, the reused map, the animations, like, oh, Breath of the Wild was never good anyway. Like it was absurd at every stage of its life cycle. And now, post-release, we're in like that cope cycle. We're in cope mode, right? We're seeing people like David Jaff, try and release statements about how the game isn't that great. Like this is the same guy who tried to tell us that Keen Up Bridge of Spirits was better than Breath of the Wild, which is laughable. Like who even remembers Keen Up? But how much longer can like the cope cycle last, right? Like these guys are gonna like throw a fit when Zelda wins Game of the Year. I think it is undisputed at this point that it is going to happen. These guys are gonna throw a fit with like the Mario movie winning like the best game adaptation over The Last of Us HBO. We're gonna see like a lot of like crazy, just narrative driven, just insane ranting and raving from these people, and they are a dying breed. I do think that like in the year of our Lord 2023, like. The pretendo mindset, the culture, it's falling to pieces. Like they have like some holdouts on Twitter and stuff like that. They have like some niche sub communities, but like whenever people try and like try to paint narratives like, oh man, Nintendo censored this game or they did this or like they're not making the game I want to make. Like people just kind of roll their eyes at it. Like it does kind of feel like at this point that whenever you criticize Nintendo, the immediate response from most people is just, most people just assume that you're a fanboy from another company, right? That you're a Snoy or an Xbot or or a steampunk. Like people just assume you have like some kind of agenda and they don't trust you. We are at that point now where people don't trust game journalism at all. They don't trust like bloggers. They don't trust YouTubers. They don't trust anyone. And you shouldn't, right? This is the end result of you, the YouTuber, the creator, the critic, constantly lying to your audience and trying to gaslight them into hating like the best video game company in the industry. No one respects you. No one cares about you at all. These people are going to go and play Tears of the Kingdom. They are going to enjoy it, and they are going to remain fans of The Legend of Zelda for a very, very long time.